Hi, Paul. This is a response to your last video in which you responded to me about, I don't know, atheism in America. Yeah, I went to look through Wikipedia at more statistics. Somehow I didn't have all the numbers right in my head, so this sounds like one of these other little projects, kind of like the definitions projects, the definition of atheism project that we pursued for a little bit there, and yeah. So yeah, I took a look at your links, and I've been looking through Wikipedia at the links of American statistics as well, and you know, it was a little bit more optimistic than I thought. I mean, atheists plus agnostics are a total of 15%. On the other hand, it's quite disturbing that somewhere to like 80% of Americans alone are Christians. Not just believers. But of course, the other believers account for less than 5%. So, anyways, so. One of the statistics I was really disturbed by, though, was women in Britain. That's really strange that women would be more likely to be believers. That I see. I've always imagined that since the church tends to propagate the sort of male dominance in society a bit, at least in the United States, that's the way it is. I mean, just that there's a bit of an association there. You don't see a lot of women priests, and I don't know. I think you can't be a priest under certain. I don't know what the rules are, but that would naturally sort of lead women to at least be more closet atheists. But I mean, I don't. I'd like to. I wouldn't. I don't want to risk trying to deconstruct that number. Like, why is that? Is it that I don't know, religion provides more of an emotional stable base, and women tend to, be more emotional? That theory is so weak. I don't. So I'm withdrawing that. Never mind. Okay. Oh yeah, a point that I just wanted to make sure, a point I meant to address in my previous video about my theory about how moderation took hold in Israel and Britain, is that the meme, if you will, of religious moderation itself, if you consider that to be an actor, then you can see that in the United States, that because all the religions are on more of an even playing field, that actor essentially is acted against directly. Whereas in places like England and Israel, because you don't have something like the Establishment Clause, and nevertheless you still have people wanting to be reasonable, they end up compromising the base faiths. Like, they allow the moderation to manifest itself inside the state religion, right, rather than being something which is acted against, which it would be in the United States. Anyways, like all good theories, they should be subjected to test. So the question, the way you test my theory, I think, is that we ask the question is, say, for example, in Israel, if Mu, you would like to say something, I don't know. Do the moderates and the Orthodox Jews, for example, is there a lot of tension between them, right? And then the same thing would be, I guess, in the Church of England. I mean, or in Britain, as moderation has crept into British society, what kind of pushback has there been, right? So in the United States, the fundamentalists are their own kind of, form their own kinds of churches by themselves, and they dig in their heels and decry moderation. So Anyways, okay, and then you yeah, the thing about liberal being a bad word in the U.S. It's not quite right. It's a bad word for right-wing thinkers in the United States. That is to say, you'll see it a lot on television, but that's because a lot of television is really owned by the right wing. But amongst people who are leftist or liberal, people like such as myself, I'm happy to call myself a liberal or a leftist or whatever. I don't. It's a correct classification, and it's somebody. It's like a lot of, I don't know, name calling, if you will. Uh, when somebody calls someone a name, that usually says something about the person, you know. Right? If somebody's calling me a liberal, but they mean it in a mean-spirited way, that has nothing to do with me. If you think about that, even if it's correct, it has to do with them, right? So, okay, then you asked a interesting question. Like, is the U.S. because the U.S. is such a large country? First, I should say that I'm really a transplanted Canadian. I was born in the U.S., but then I lived most of my life in Canada. Then I moved back. I've been in the U.S. here for about 12 years, or maybe more than 13 years, I guess now. I still feel like a bit of an outsider here, though, because it's interesting you could pick out my accent. What accent? What are you talking about? Anyways, so is there any danger of the U.S. breaking apart? And that do we use religion to try and hold us together? I don't think it works that way. I mean, the U.S. is a really unusually patriotic country, as you said, but I think that derives from our just unusual predisposition towards indoctrination. And I hate to be so technical about or just simplistic about it, but you know, every American owns a TV and every American watches ridiculous amounts of it. And television is just, I guess everybody watches television all over the place, but in the United States, it's just it's just so bad. Television, it's all media sources are trying to, I don't know, teach you right-wing ideologies and stuff like that, which are just, I don't know, and it's so commercialized. And anyways, but really, I mean, there isn't a movement inside in the U.S. anywhere seeking like separation or anything like that. It's nothing like that in the U.S. Uh, the the thing is, states themselves, some states like Texas have their own identity, but because the way the patriotism works in the United States, they think of themselves as Americans first, I suppose, and then as Texans, right? But it's sort of like, we're still part of the same family, but I'm the better sibling or something like that. I don't know, right? So there really isn't a danger of that. I mean, the thing about being a large country is that it leaves us with sort of pockets of little groups that sort of do their own thing. So in the South and in the Heartland, there's a lot of religion, obviously. So yeah, you notice that, of course, out on the coasts, that there certainly is a lot. Well, people tend to be more secular. They also tend to be more leftist and liberal. Okay, what's really going on there is that large metropolitan areas in the United States, that is to say, just simply the big cities, that's where you find your secularism, your liberalism, and so on. It's right, but so I mean, there are a few exceptions to that, and I think Texas is like, in Austin, I think that's like their more, but it is their most liberal sort of enclave of people would be big cities like Austin, but even there, I think they, anyways, but that's just the exception. Basically, all big cities, the biggest cities in America are on the coasts, but of course there are. You look around, and there are of course large cities in the interior, say Ohio or something like that, Cincinnati, and you'll find that they lean a little bit more left there. And so that's sort of how they, and they're more secular. And not to say that those two are the same thing, just that you have a tendency towards that. Okay, that's some other notes here. Yeah, and then you made some you had some questions about the U.S. schools system. Or no, sorry, but you were talking about the school system in Britain now that there are suddenly faith-based schools opening up. Well, obviously in the U.S., actually, this was kind of a big thing. U.S. has a lot of private schools that are really religiously based, and there's also been an upsurge in what's called homeschooling. That's where you simply teach your own kids, like they don't have to go to school at all, and that's very often motivated by the desire to teach religion along with education and sort of skip or under teach evolution, I guess. And I mean, it seeps all the way up into universities, though, because in the U.S. There are unaccredited universities, and the way it works is that to get accreditation, there's a process of getting accreditation from something called the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. Anyways, it's all under the Department of Education in the U.S. And whatever these places are like, I range from being diploma mills to just being universities that teach very strange things, like Liberty University in Lynchburg, Pennsylvania, which is just I don't know. They don't think evolution is real, and they call themselves a university, and well, that's that. So yeah, I mean, our education systems already have been sort of has these warped aspects to them. Anyways, those are just sort of my thoughts for now. To be later.